Today we're going to talk about squares, cubes, square roots, and cube roots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little chart to kind of remind you what they mean. If you have a number such as x, and I've given a couple of examples, and you see x to the second power, that is a reminder that you're taking x times x. So you would be taking 2 times 2, or 2 squared equals 4. And so we're going to just practice that on a couple of them so that you can kind of get a hang for that. It's not supposed to be anything very tricky. Just strictly taking the number times itself. And so a cube root means the same thing. It doesn't mean the number times 3. It means the number times the number times the number again. So you're going to actually do 3 of them. So I'm going to write this one out. 2 to the third power means 2 times 2 times 2, which in our case is 8. So that just gives you a little bit of a reminder as to how to do that. And so we would do the same thing here. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 again would give me 64, or 4 to the third power equals 64. And you're going to continue along that lines. 5 to the third power equals 125. And you'll finish filling out the chart accordingly. Now the opposite of that, and the things we're not quite as familiar with, are the square roots. So if I were to take the square root of, let's say, 4, you would find out that that is the opposite. The square and the square root cancel each other out, the same way adding and subtracting do. So if I take the square root of 4, I am back to the 2 that I started with. And so the way to think about that is, let me write this down here at the bottom. This x squared square root goes right back to x. So this to the second power and the square root cancel each other out. And the same thing is going to happen when I go to the cube root. If I have x cubed and I take the cube root of it, we are back to our x again completely. So if I follow that line of thinking out and I just practice a few of them just so that you're familiar with them. If I take the cube root of 8, we're back to 2. If I take the square root of this 16, we're back to 4. And if I take the cube root of 64, we're back to 4. So you can kind of see how the table is going to play out. If you have a calculator, you have to pay attention to where your buttons are, and I know everybody's calculator is slightly different, but if there is no number on the square root, that is our square root. If we want to do a cube root, most of the time they're up in the little, like, hit the green key first and then use them. So you're going to want to make sure that you know how to do that on whatever calculator you're using, whether it's online or one that you have at the house. So we're going to practice some of those, and I'm going to pause the video for just a minute, and I will complete a few more, and you can do that as well. How did you do? Did you get those all filled in correctly? All right, I want to go over the specials just because they're kind of a strange situation. You know that if you take 1 times 1, we get an answer of 1. And if you multiply 3 ones together, it's 1 times 1 times 1. So therefore, the square root of 1 is still also going to be 1. And the cube root of 1 will also be 1. The same holds true for the zeros. 0 times 0 is still 0, times another 0 is also 0, and the square root of 0 is 0. And so I don't want you to let one of these special cases confuse you to the pattern. You are taking a number times itself, a number times itself 3 times, and then you are undoing that. What little number multiplied by itself equals the number inside. So please take some time and make sure that you're familiar with using your calculator on those. That's just a brief overview of how a square, cube, square root, and cube works. So thanks.